Well, it is not just my first visit to Gaddafi Stadium, not just my first visit to Lahore, it's my first visit to Pakistan, full stop. So it is a great pleasure to be here. I've been all the way throughout the cricketing world, so this is my very first visit to Pakistan, so it feels fabulous to be at the home of Pakistan cricket. It really does. Well, first of all, we've been treated fabulously well since we've been here. The courtesy, the hospitality, the generous, the warmth, the love of cricket is plainly obvious for everyone to see. It's been no secret, and I've been fortunate enough to sit around the ICC Chief Executive's table for a number of years now. And obviously since 2009, the conversations have been very much about how can we get international cricket back into Pakistan. Cricket Island obviously is now a test nation, and we certainly feel it's important that we play our part in being a mature, grown-up member of the cricket family. We want to play our part in assisting getting international cricket back to Pakistan. Obviously, what Giles Clarke did with the task force a number of years back was to come here, was to spread the information back that he had learned and he had seen, and to, I suppose, to convey the sense of, I suppose, increasing level of comfort that he saw to make or to normalise cricketing relations with the rest of the world. And to be honest, just at a very human level, until you see it yourself, you come with a set of conceptions, you come with a set of preconceptions. And I think this visit, which was generously made at the invitation of the Pakistan Cricket Board, was about beginning to change those perceptions. So what we saw yesterday in Islamabad and what we've seen today in Lahore, and we very much look forward to the game when it starts, is the extraordinary lengths to which the cricket authorities, the security authorities, the government, the police, everyone has been working incredibly closely together to begin to build that confidence. And all the presentations that we have seen, particularly speaking to us as cricket organisations, looking at the tours that have taken place, looking at the tour here against Sri Lanka and the tours that are going to be coming, for example, the Bangladesh under-16s, I believe later in the year, it begins to build a sense of, okay, well, what are the reasons now to say, no, why wouldn't we come if we've had all of these senses of comfort provided to us? So it's the beginning, I believe, of a conversation. Next step from here is that Ross McCollum, the Cricket Island chairman, and myself, Ross is here on this trip with me. We will go back. We have a board meeting at the end of this month. We would like to convey to the board what we have seen and the remarkable steps forward that have been taken to instill that level of confidence in other cricket boards around the world. We will do what we always have done, which is we'll engage with our governments. And in Ireland, we're slightly complicated because we have the UK government we need to engage with because Ireland is dual jurisdiction. We're an all-Ireland sport, so we engage with the UK government. We also engage with the Irish government. And we'll engage with our insurers. We'll talk to our players, very importantly. We'll speak to the other boards that have been here in the past, for obviously Sri Lanka. And then we need to wait for an invitation. And then when we receive an invitation, if we receive an invitation, we will go through the motions and we will take it extremely seriously. There's no date set. However, it wouldn't surprise me if that date or if that invitation was received, well, hopefully, perhaps even by the end of the year, for a tour taking place perhaps next year, maybe the year after, I don't know. I think that's something that we should take extremely seriously. Well, first of all, I thought it was only my mother who followed my career, so I'm joyous to see that there's somebody else has shared that journey. Oh, look, you're very kind, Sammy, to say what you have said. I can tell you, I have stood on the shoulders of some incredible people in Ireland, players, coaches, volunteers, staff members, both past and now present. It's a journey I've shared with a lot of extremely talented people. Yes, I've certainly had a part of that journey. And I'm pleased you asked the question that you did, because I suppose another 1%er, I think the performance people call it, of our desire to look very positively on any invitation we receive is precisely because whenever we have asked the Pakistan board, would they be prepared to send their team to play us, particularly if you've been touring England, the answer has always been yes. And we've never forgotten the fact that Pakistan has been extremely good to us. And this is even before we were in the Future Tours programme. This is when we were an associate member, we were struggling for fixtures. Whenever we asked Pakistan Cricket the question, they always came with a very positive response, and we were always extremely grateful. And there's a warmth between the two nations which is palpable. So of course, on the back of that, when Pakistan agreed to be our opponent for our inaugural test match, and I should say inaugural men's test match, because not uncoincidentally, our inaugural women's test match was also against Pakistan in Dublin, which I have to say Ireland won, which was a fabulous occasion. So it was all the more appropriate that the men's team could play against us in our inaugural match. We were sorry the first day was wet. It was a big letdown for everyone. But we were delighted when the match went to day 5, and day 5 dawned with all 4 results still possible. Our first, I think, the first proper day 1 of the game was we batted first, and it was one of those, oh dear, this is going to be disastrous. I think we were about 7 or 9 for 4 or whatever it was, and it was like, oh no, this is going to end very, very badly. But in the end, particularly in the second innings, when we were, when Kevin O'Brien got 100, and I think the Pakistan team was about 4 wickets down, still with only double figures on the board. Suddenly, it became interesting, but it was a wonderful occasion. It was, it reinforced the super ties between Irish cricket and Pakistan cricket, and it's a relationship we know is going to be extremely strong in the future. Look, I would probably remove the under my leadership part of the question. I suppose what I try and do is my job is to try and provide the resources, the opportunity and the environment for the players, the coaches, the staff, the committees to be able to make the best decisions and then to be able to implement those decisions. I suppose if you look at the facts, when I arrived, I was, as I used to say, Chief Executive always sounds a very grand title until you realise that when I joined, I was in fact the Chief and only Executive of what was then the Irish Cricket Union. Thereafter, we now have 33 members of staff. We had very, very small turnover. It was only a couple of €100,000. We're now up to about 10 million euros. There were only maybe 11 to 12,000 people playing the game in 2006, with probably not, in schools it was there sporadically. We now have a much larger number, 2 or 3 or 4 times that number, playing the game regularly and trying the game. We're trying the game out in schools, and we've got more boots on the ground in terms of development staff. We've developed our own domestic first-class cricket. It just used to be club cricket. We now have a tier called our interprovincial structure between club and country. That's for both men and women. We have 19 to 20 players on contract men, and this year for the first time we put 6 women players on professional contracts, part-time, not full-time. And this year for the first time, once again on the back of having becoming a test nation, in 2017, we now have match officials as well. So every area of the game, whether it be seniors, juniors, male, female, on the pitch, off the pitch, corporate, commercial, playing, performance-wise, I'd like to think that the curve has been positive, and I guess if we're looking at the apex two teams, men and women, our women are 10th best in the world at the moment. We lost 4 senior players at the end of last year to retirement. We had another player who stepped back because she'd been playing since the age of 12 or 13 and just basically needed to take a break from the game. And Ed Joyce, one of our former great players, is now the women's full-time senior coach. So there's a lot of renewal and regeneration within the men's team. I think we'd sort of dropped off in performance since the 2015 World Cup, but we're now bringing through a lot of young players in all 3 formats of the game, and that's really genuinely exciting to see. We played a triangular T20 tournament against Scotland and the Netherlands in Ireland a couple of weeks ago, which we won. We're currently playing in a pentangular competition, 5-way competition. I'd never heard the word pentangular before it was put on the title of this particular event. That's against Oman, Hong Kong, Nepal and the Netherlands, and that's currently in Oman. And we have won 3 out of our 4 games. So that's all preparation for the World T20 qualifier, which is the culmination of what we're doing. So I suppose if you're winding the clock back and comparing us to where we were in 2006, we're very, very different. But it's going to be a very, very long journey. I think Pakistan has been a test nation since 1926 or something like that. 1952. Apologies. So yes, you've got about 67 years ahead of us. But we'd like to think that we'll catch up quickly. There's a good question. I suppose if you were to look at T20, it would be difficult to say that it probably doesn't feel like it's the format that is going to dominate in years to come, whether it be cultural norms, whether it be generational norms of children having shorter attention spans. We've seen even T10 cricket has grown up. We see in England now the growth of the 100, a different format of the game. There seems to be a continual striving to find shorter, punchier, more exciting, which is a move away from clearly the longer formats of the game. So I don't feel there is anything necessary to fear for in relation to the shortest recognised format, T20. ODI cricket, well, I guess we're just off the back of the what would be probably regarded, certainly in England, as an incredibly successful event. The grounds were exceptionally well attended. There were some fabulous games of cricket, not least memorable final, even that semi-final, the New Zealand-India match. And if you were speaking to the ICC, we had our set of meetings literally just after the World Cup, literally the day after the World Cup final. ICC conference week commenced, and we received a number of presentations talking about attendance, visibility, social media engagement, broadcast figures, all of which were exceptionally high and in demonstrating clearly a very successful event. I will give you a personal view. I know it's not one necessarily universally shared. I still believe the number of teams in the 50 over World Cup are too few. Having had 16 teams in 2007, 14 in 11 and 15, and then 10 for this event, I personally don't feel that's enough. I've always been strongly of that view. I think there isn't sufficient visibility of the other teams around the world who can genuinely cause upsets. I think, in fact, I don't think you can have an upset, seeing as every team in the World Cup is a full member team. Upsets between full members, it's a question of degree, really, as opposed to fact. I think it demonstrates the visibility of the game's global appeal. I think it demonstrates the ability and the success of the ICC high performance program to bring other teams through to be successful in those formats. You only have to look at the teams that missed out, the likes of Ireland and Scotland and Zimbabwe and the Netherlands, to see that there are some extremely strong teams in the 50 over format. I know that wouldn't be a view shared universally around the ICC board table or CC table, but it is still my opinion. As far as the test format is concerned, I would say that ICC has obviously just introduced the World Test Championship. There have been innovations of which you'd be aware in the last number of years, whether it be looking at 4-day test matches. Obviously, when Ireland played against England at Lord's, a fabulous day we had in July. 4 days that we had in July. I think it ended up as 3 days. But that's trying to make the game more accessible, more in tune with people's lifestyles, finishing the game on a weekend. And obviously floodlit test cricket has been introduced as well. I think it would be wrong to try and introduce too many changes all at once, because you're never quite sure if things do improve, if things do become successful, which of those was the particular lever that created that success. So I would be of a mind to say, yes, I think it's appropriate that you introduce, the championship introduces a degree of context. As you know, Test cricket forever has always been simply by bilateral arrangement. Introducing context for a table to lead to a World Test Championship final, I think is absolutely the right way to go. I also believe, by the way, it was appropriate that even elevating Ireland and Afghanistan and leaving Zimbabwe out of the World Test Championship, I believe that was the right thing to do. I think history shows when you parachute in a new team into the World Test Championship, whether it be Bangladesh in 2000, Zimbabwe in 92, going back before then would have been Sri Lanka in 82, those teams always struggle. And they don't just struggle for a few matches, they struggle for years, if not, decades, until they find the rhythms of it. So I think it's appropriate that teams sit outside the championship, they get used to the rhythms of the game, the 5-day format. They play one-off games against other teams in the championship, they play against themselves, and they get used to the rhythms of the competition. I have to say, I think of all the newly anointed test nations, Ireland and Afghanistan probably have as good an opportunity as any to be able to succeed, if only because if you look, for example, at Ireland, our entire generation of players that have grown up playing 4-day county championship cricket in England. We would have played frequently in Intercontinental Cup cricket. And there's just simply, in Ireland, there's a history of the game which is nearly as old as it is in England. So there's always been that love and affection for the test match format, because the broadcast signals of BBC and Channel 4 and Sky are receivable in Ireland. You've always seen what the English audience have seen in terms of English test match cricket during the summer. So there's that cultural hinterland that exists with passion for the 4-day format, 5-day format. So I guess, to come back to your very earlier question, how do I feel the 3 formats are faring? I would say well, and I think the game is stewarding those formats as well as it can, bearing in mind all the forces that exist in the game today. And notwithstanding the 3 formats, I mentioned to you there's the 100, there's T10, there's domestic T20 cricket, the franchise competitions around the world. So trying to find a means to ensure that international cricket still retains its pinnacle nature, that is absolutely what us administrators' task must be. As a sport in general, well, I guess one of the key threats is probably going to be complacency. If we don't continually look at ourselves as a sport, number one, against other sports, number 2, against other forms of entertainment, looking at how that sport is delivered, communicated with, or how we communicate with our audience, looking at I guess the new, whether it be social media, the new methods of delivery, whether it's OTT, whether it's live streaming. Obviously there's integrity in terms of whether it be anti-corruption, whether it be security threats. But of course, we're a sport that operates in a global environment, and we're a sport that operates within the countries in which we operate. It's interesting when I remember 10 years ago, before the squad was looking to go to Zimbabwe, and there were some question marks about whether that should go ahead. You may even have been at ICC yourself in the 2009 or 10, Sammy, I can't quite recall. But I do recall there were some question marks about whether we would go to Zimbabwe as Ireland in the Intercontinental Cup. And I remember speaking to our players about it, and we'd engaged with the Zimbabwe cricket authorities, and the Minister of Education and Sport came over to address the players. And I remember a couple of our Northern Irish players said, it'd be difficult of us, perhaps even hypocritical of us as a group of players who've tried so long to attract international teams to come and play in Northern Ireland, with all of the stories that happen that Northern Ireland is famous or infamous for around the world, and for us then to cite security as a reason not to tour other nations. That doesn't mean we take a reckless attitude, it doesn't mean that we don't look properly into things, but it's just perhaps the starting point for those discussions. Sorry, I went off topic there, but security, integrity, corruption, protecting children when they are playing the game, that it's a safe and a secure environment, ensuring that we remain relevant as a sport, that we're constantly listening to our fans, to our members, for our volunteers, the people who play the game day in, day out in club cricket, to say what are the constraints that they face in playing the game, in following the game, in watching the game, in wanting to be a fan of the game. I think as long as we keep listening, keep talking to each other, keep communicating, then hopefully the game is going to be mature enough to remain on top of the threats it faces. We would look upon it quite similar to other tours that we've had in the past. It's obviously, being so close to England provides us with a great opportunity, because international teams touring through England, they have a window in between either a changeover of formats, or usually in a changeover of formats, and they go and play either against counties, or we can say, would you like to come to Ireland and play a nation, come and play a country. You'll get a brilliant warm-up opportunity against the England team, and you'll get a properly motivated match. And of course, it's a wonderful opportunity for us as well. And as I said, over the years, ever since I have been in Irish cricket, cricket Ireland since 2006 and 2007, the Pakistan team has always been, and the Pakistan board has always been, a very firm friend of Cricket Ireland. And last year's Test match, next year's T20s are an ample demonstration of that, and we look forward to furthering our discussions about reciprocating in the near future.